Hello, welcome to my familia homeschool. My name is Marissa and I live in Miami, Florida with my husband William and my three daughters, Abby, who is 6, Ellie, who is 3, and Orly, who is 2 months old. We are a family that has chosen homeschool as the way that we will educate our children. And like I mentioned, I have a 2-month-old. And so today I want to share with you our birth story. I've shared about my previous birthing experiences in a couple of videos that I did not too long ago. So if you want to hear more about those, I will leave the link in the description. I've talked about natural birth and supernatural birth, which are two things that we believe in really strongly. I had my first daughter Abby with a midwife at home. I had Ellie at the birthing center, but also with a midwife. And Orly, I also had at the birthing center with a midwife. I talked a little bit about my previous experiences with Abby and Ellie in those previous videos. So I invite you to go watch those if you're interested in that. But today we're going to talk about Orly. So Orly, we had the same belief system. We were believing for smooth childbirth, for a painless childbirth, and for a quick childbirth. The pregnancy went great. There were little aches and pains and a little bit of nausea, a little bit of exhaustion. I think more than anything was being pregnant and then having 2 little ones. It was different than my previous experiences, but really it was a great pregnancy. Everything went great. Both of my girls came after 40 weeks. So I knew from the beginning that would be probable with Orly, but I was kind of hoping towards the end that maybe she would come sooner. They say with each birth they come a little bit sooner sometimes, so I was hoping for it. At first I was like, no, I'm not even gonna think about it until whatever date my due date was. But then we got to 38 weeks and I was like, well, hopefully she'll come this week, hopefully she'll come next week. Those weeks just feel eternal. But finally we had arrived at my due date. So when my due date came, I had read in the Supernatural Childbirth book. If you haven't read that, that's another one. I encourage you to read it. It's a great book. And so in that book, they talk about how the writer, the author of that book, she was due and she's like, I never wanted to go into labor before the baby was ready to come, but I didn't want to be pregnant afterwards either. So she sat down with her husband and they spoke to the baby and they told the baby, okay baby, it's time to come out. And so I told my husband, we need to do that. Let's sit down and tell the baby that it needs to come out because tomorrow's my due date and I'm ready for this baby to come. So we sat on the couch. I sat like crisscross applesauce like I am now on the couch, and we prayed and we spoke to the baby and we spoke about what we were believing for our childbirth experience. And I stand up. For some reason, towards the end of my pregnancy, my legs would fall asleep, but it was like really more dramatic than it usually is. I'm not one of those people that my leg falls asleep and then I can't walk on it. Like I just keep going. But with pregnancy, like it would fall asleep and like totally stop working. And so my leg had fallen asleep, but I just kept acting like I normally act because normally it's not a big deal. And my foot went underneath itself and it cracked really loud, and it really scared me. And so I hurt my foot the day before my due date, and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? If I go to the hospital, they're gonna try to take this baby outside of me. And we prayed for it. My husband massaged it, put ice on it, and we were okay. I was okay, but it was a scary experience. I truly believe that God supernaturally healed my foot because it was pretty crazy. But after we prayed the next day, it was pretty painful. I couldn't walk on it, but by Thursday I was okay. Thankfully the baby did not come on her due date like we told her to. And so Wednesday was my due date. Thursday we had co-op. I was like, well, I might as well go. I had a limp, but I was like, people are just gonna think that I'm pregnant and they're just gonna think that I'm wobbling around because I'm past my due date. So I went to co-op. Then I had a friend that came into town. We went to the museum the next day. It's like, we're gonna walk this baby out. It never works. So I went to the museum that day. Friday, my husband had told me, okay, this is the day that the baby's gonna be born. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hook up with that. The baby's gonna be born today on Friday. So I really focused that morning before my girls woke up and getting in that mindset, and contractions started. I spoke to my body. I told my body, okay, like it's time for the baby to be born. I spoke to the baby and contractions started. And I felt 2 gushes where my water broke, and contractions were consistent, but they weren't painful. But that's what we were believing for. So they weren't super intense, but that's also what we were believing for. And so they were consistent. I felt the 2 gushes. I let my husband know. We got the girls ready. we took them over to a friend's house and we went to the birthing center. She checked me and said I was still super early. I could stay for an hour and see if things progressed, or we could go home. We decided to stay for an hour. Things really slowed down, pretty much stopped. She checked me, we hadn't progressed. I was so disappointed. We went home and I tried to do some work and focus on other things. We left the girls for a while at my friend's house to see if things picked up again, but they didn't. So we went and got the girls. They were super disappointed. That was the worst thing for me because I knew they really wanted to see their baby sister. We picked them up. We went and got something to eat. We came home. I watched Little House on the Prairie with the girls and we went to bed. Baby did not come. I thought maybe she would come that night. She did not come that night. I woke up the next morning on Saturday and my body started to give me some signs that baby would be coming that day. But I thought maybe it would be more towards the nighttime. And so I got up, I made breakfast. I always make a pancake breakfast on Saturdays. We organized the girls' toys. I had bought some paint because I saw an idea where the girls could paint my stomach. And I thought, well, if baby's gonna come today, we better do it today. So we went outside, they painted my stomach. If you haven't seen that video, it's on my Instagram. The girls painted my stomach. We went to a fall festival, and as we were there, contractions started. And they were more intense than they had been the day before, but they definitely were not to a point where I couldn't walk through them, where I couldn't talk through them, where I couldn't eat through them. They weren't that intense, and so I felt like it was still going to be a while, but I felt inside of me, you need to call the midwife. She lives further away from the birthing center, so I just felt that that was what I was supposed to do. So I went to the bathroom, I called her, she told me, okay, call me back in an hour. I could tell she didn't think it was going to be super soon. And so I went outside, the girls were on the bounce house, contractions continued, and I could tell my husband knew that it would be sooner than I thought it would be, and so we went ahead and contacted another friend that had said she would come over and stay with the girls that night when I let her know that I thought the baby was going to be coming that day. And so we decided to go and pick her up and bring her back to our house. We were in the car for probably about an hour by the time we went, picked her up, went back to our house. I called the midwife while we were coming back to the house and told her that contractions had continued. I could tell that she didn't think it would be super soon either. And so it was kind of weird because I knew this is what I'm believing for, but at the same time, the midwife didn't think that it would be super soon. But anyway, we get home. She told me, okay, well, get your girls situated, keep timing the contractions, and get back with me. Let me know here in about 20 minutes what things are looking like. So I get out of the car, and that's when I knew this baby is coming. I went into the house. My whole intention was to go ahead and give the girls a bath, get their pajamas on, get them situated. We walk into the house, I go into the bathroom, and I have this contraction where I felt that this baby was gonna come out in my bathroom. And I always joked about that. I was like, my husband's done this twice, he could handle it. Because my previous birth was pretty quick. She came in about an hour once we got to the birthing center. So I was like, well, hopefully we make it this time. So I tell my husband, we need to go now. We get in the car. He pretty much had to push me to the car because the baby wanted to come out in the parking lot. He told me, we need to get into the car. We've got to go. It was the longest 15 minutes of my life riding in that car to get to the birthing center. We get there. She almost comes out in the parking lot of the birthing center. We get inside. The midwife asked if I wanted to use the restroom. I tried, couldn't because the baby was coming out. I had another contraction that sent me to my knees. I opened the bathroom door so that they could come in. They got me out of the bathroom. I pushed once and baby was there. From the time we opened the van door to the time that baby was born was about 7 minutes, so it was super duper fast. I was shocked, but also super blessed and super excited about this birth experience. Really, each experience has gotten better and better. The Bible says that we go from glory to glory. Things get better each time, and it really has. I've felt as I've grown in faith in this area that each experience has gotten better, has gotten more beautiful, and I just really wanted to share this with you guys. Thank you for listening to my story. Like I said, if you have any questions about supernatural birth, about what God has promised us in His Word, the promises that He has given us, and what birth can truly look like, I would love to talk to you about that. Find me on Instagram, send me a message, because this is something that I'm super passionate about. I used to think when I was younger, like everyone does, because that's what we see in movies, that birth was painful and it was hard. But when I found out about these promises, it really excited me. And so I want everyone to know that this can be an experience that you can have as well. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe so that you can join us next time with My Familia Homeschool.